All right, welcome to another edition of the Big Blue Report featuring that guy, the two-time Super Bowl champion, Giants legend, the former defensive captain, best food truck owner, and all-around good guy, Jonathan Casillas, the Professor Ryan Darlington. I'm Randy Zellea from Back Sports Page. And before we get fully started, this episode of the Big Blue Report is brought to you by FOCO. If you like bobbleheads, coffee mugs, anything with Giants on it, Giants accessories, FOCO.com is the place to go. Go there now. Help the show by supporting us and the Giants by going to FOCO.com. Go there right now for all your Giants gear. All right, gentlemen. We have a team.
We do.
And the good news is none of the three of us were cut. I was very excited about that. I was very excited that I made the team this year. This is great.
I paid the right people this time around. That's good.
Well, listen, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. There's not a lot of guys like me around running around that team.
Hey, and I'm uncuttable.
Yeah. There you go.
You just keep coming back.
Love it.
That's it.
JC didn't realize that his contract expired quite a few years ago. He just keeps showing up for practice. It just keeps coming back for more. It keeps coming back. Guys, we were talking about as we were going on the air, and JC said to us, "Was there any surprises?" We'll go around the horn here. I'm going to start though. The surprise to me was the conversation about whether Tommy DeVito was going to be on this team. Again, I totally feel that he has been disrespected for everything that he accomplished last year. To me, he was disrespected the minute they signed Drew Lock to a contract. I felt like Tommy DeVito earned his stripes last year. He won games. JC, the last couple shows, you have talked about the difficulty of winning games in the NFL and how that builds your equity in the league. Tommy did that last year. So why is this a conversation? Hey, good news, we're going to keep him. His spot should have been there already. There shouldn't have been much of a conversation.
Well, it's a what have you done for me lately, and lately meaning now. That's what that really means, and look, not to say you can't base everything off of last year, but there's other, things like a sliding scale of what you measure, and one of those things is potential, and I think the upside and the potential of DeVito is very limited, and look, I was in the stadium last year when he won, that Monday Night Football game against the Packers. It was electric. That was the only game I feel like throughout the year that the Giants had a good showing of fans, and the fans came out and supported, and they showed up in terms of like celebrating and being loud and being, there throughout the game. I don't know if there was another game I could say that for, and that was a game that Tommy DeVito started and won. And look, you can't take anything away from the kid, but every single year you got to win that job again, especially if you're not like an incumbent starter or like a Bobby Okereke who's played, every single snap last year. Like you got some guys that are unquestionable the starters. Everybody else, you got to make the team. Ray, that's just the truth. You got to make the team every single year. So that's my only thing when it comes to that. And I get you. I don't like how none of the media talked about Tommy DeVito at all being not even a starter, not even being a backup. So I was definitely not feeling that. But if you go with what I was surprised off this roster, and it's a conversation we had last week, is that they only kept 6 receivers. And, releasing both Isaiah Hodgins and Allen Robinson was, I think, everybody kind of thought that was either basically a toss-up between the two.
One or the other.
Allen Robinson maybe not play as much special teams as Isaiah Hodgins might. Allen Robinson being a little bit older, but both of them being veterans, both of them having success in the NFL. I thought they would choose one of them, but look, they went with a basically full special teamer in Gunnar Olszewski. You got to see what his injury is looking like for the next few weeks, if he's going to be available for week 1. And then Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who not really going to play at that much receiver early on, I believe. But as the season progresses, you might see him not only be a good special teams player, because I think that's his value here, but also, contribute in the wide receiver room. And, it's a big kid, fast, athletic guy, long arms. He's a big guy. And it's potential. Like I said, Tommy DeVito, his potential is not that high. If you look at Bryce Ford-Wheaton, his potential is a lot higher in terms of position-wise. It's potential is a lot to say. That means you haven't done anything quite yet. But when you look at these young guys, you have to go off of basically the potential. And I think the potential of him being not just a special teamer, but a really good, solid fourth or fifth wide receiver, maybe sixth wide receiver on the roster, I think he can be a solid contributor there.
Yeah. So there's two things in there that I was kind of had thoughts about, right? First of all, you stole my what was I surprised about, and that was keeping not keeping either Hodgins or Robinson. I think it was the last name. I totally agree with you that we are definitely putting all of our eggs in the Gunnar Olszewski basket, right? When it comes down to who is going to be our returner, I guess there's a couple of guys that have a little bit of experience with that. We might be able to put Tracy back there for a couple, but we're really kind of banking on Gunnar. And when we're talking about Gunners, I had thought that there might be a spot for Miles Boykin. He had a heck of a good preseason, but I think at the end of the day, I am really excited to see quality players on the practice squad, right? This is the NFL. People are going to get hurt. We are going to be calling up some of those players, and they have been through at least a part of our preseason to this point. But when we're talking about Tommy, I think it is also important to recognize that there's two things in there that I'm thinking about. We have the benefit of hindsight in the sense that we're having this conversation after he has stepped in and performed with poise and performed pretty well during those 3 preseason games. And I don't know if we would have had the exact same conversation or the same amount of confidence in him as a QB2 if he had asked us prior to the first preseason game. The other thing that we benefit from, or that Tommy benefits from, I think, is that we don't have anything other than Daniel Jones to stack him up against. Right? Drew Lock came in and he was out in the first series of his preseason debut. And so if Drew Lock had come in and lit it up over the course of the last 3 games, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. But we're having it primarily, or at least in part, because Tommy was it. Tommy was the entirety of the preseason, with the exception of one half of football. So I think, I'm excited by what we saw. I'm definitely excited about the fact that we do have capable quarterbacks. But, the other thing that I think of in the back of my mind, the old adage is if you've got 3 quarterbacks, you don't have one. So, I mean, if you've got Daniel and Daniel's playing well, knocking on wood, hopefully that's what we're going to be looking at. Then neither one of them will see a whole lot of action. I think the interesting thing that's going to happen is if Drew Lock comes in, doesn't play well, how long is his leash before Danny DeVito? Listen to me.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Danny DeVito comes rolling in.
He'd be throwing Jersey Mike sandwiches.
I think it'd be hard for him to see over John Michael Smith's ass. I think it'd be hard for him to see.
He'd be throwing Jersey Mike sandwiches to the other team. I would absolutely love it. That would be great. Okay, I got to react to some of this. JC, you've been at practices so far during camp. I've been at some practices during camp. The Isaiah Hodgins cut didn't surprise me as much because when I was around the wide receivers during warmups, and how you just look at certain guys and you just see like the odd man out. That's how I saw Hodgins. He had been a big part of what's been going on here for the last 2 seasons. And, between Hyatt coming in last year, Robinson getting healthy, now we have neighbors here, Darius Slayton has some equity here. You start looking around and you say, well, where does Hodgins fit in this? Hodgins did not have a great follow-up from his 2022 campaign in 2023. He did not have the same effect as he did last season as he did the year before, obviously for multiple reasons beyond his control. You have to have someone be able to throw him the ball. I wasn't surprised when that happened. I'm happy that he's on the practice squad. I'm happy that he can, push comes to shove, they can sign and promote him up into the main roster if needed. It's a guy who's familiar with the system and would be able to step in. Now, the other thing, JC, that you saw at practice with me, because you and I were joking around about it too, Drew Lock was doing more running than throwing throughout this whole entire camp. Again, Tommy and Daniel had more familiarity with the system, and I understand that. But I looked at Drew Lock and I never saw any sense of comfortability of anything he was doing on this practice squad. Now, there's one thing I have to also point out. We talked about on Tom. It's been Tommy's preseason. JC, you were up in the press box, and I don't know if you picked up on it. Do you know how many passing yards the Giants had against the Jets on Saturday night? Again, understanding it's preseason and what the situation was, but do you know
I
how
know
many?
at one point it was
was
like
net-
-11.
I was going to say, is it more than like 5?
Yeah.
I'm trying to
It
remember.
was bad because it was 8 sacks, right? It was 8 sacks in the game. That counts against your
19
passing
pressures.
yardage.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was bad. It was really bad.
I threw Brett a hot dog and got more yards at some points during
Bro, it was 3 sacks in a row on one drive. Like
Yeah.
that was I was like this. Oh my gosh, what the hell is going on?
The
It was
Giants
really bad.
The Giants got Tommy DeVito got sacked 8 times on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the Giants only had 56 passing yards total.
Yeah.
And want to hear the scary part?
That's not the scary part.
50 of them were in the fourth quarter in the last 2 drives.
Yeah.
Well, at least they put something together, right?
It was bad, but in all fairness, a lot of those guys are not on the team. They're not in the league, and it is what it is, But look, I think real quick before we move on, because I know we got other things to talk about. The other surprise for me, I guess, it's not really the person that's there; it's the person that's not there. That the Giants didn't go and claim a corner; they actually claimed a safety, and they didn't bring in a corner as of right now. Of course, we're talking about we're over a week away from the first game, but I would thought that the Giants would make a move at the cornerback position, given that their number. I mean, Flott's almost unproven in the NFL, given his limited playing time, and he's coming off an injury that kept him sidelined for basically the majority of training camp. And then everybody else at that position, I mean, you got McLeod, who has struggled, but he's like a do-everything type of guy. And then you have the young kid that they brought in, but he's going to be predominantly in the slot. Why am I missing his name right now? Or Drew Phillips. Phillips. And I mean, who else? We got Trey Hawkins. Is he on the practice squad? Is he on IR right now? Like, there's a lot of question marks in that cornerback room, and I don't think the Giants did a good job in answering those questions.
I will say that the guy that they picked up, Anthony Johnson, you're right. He is primarily a safety, but he's a converted safety from a corner. And so I think hopefully.
No, Ryan. No. Once you move the safety, it's for a reason. Don't play them back ends.
That's fair.
Don't.
I just I know that Bowen's going to be doing a lot of quarters. And maybe that's somebody that can step up and actually play a role like that. But maybe I'm just wishing, wish casting the whole thing.
Well,
and seeing what maybe comes up.
I just there's so many good, talented receivers in the NFL, and it sucks because you look at the waiver wire, right? There's 1,100 guys or whatever that got cut. 5 corners were claimed, like immediately. So like there's a high priority for corners starting first string or first corner, second corners in the NFL, and it might be a shortage of quality guys out there that you can put up against. You look at every single team; every single one got a really good wide receiver. In our division, you got 3 great wide receivers and a whole bunch of good wide receivers.
Yep.
So that's our division. So you don't got to look outside the division. Week 1, you're going to have the best receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson. Every single week, you have to go up against these phenomenal, talented guys on the outside, and you have to have a way to match up. Yes, Shane Bowen, he's going to do what he can schematically to prevent Justin Jefferson or A.J. Brown or all of these guys from getting off. But you got to have premier corners, at least one on your team, and the other guys got to be really good because you're going to go against some very talented athletes, man.
Twice a year.
Yep. Right.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. And not only that, too, guys, the roster's still a work in progress. Even though we got the waiver wire past that area, we still, JC, you've seen teams, not just the Giants, but other teams, still make fine-tuning moves all the way up until week 1, to the beginning of week 1. So there's still a lot of things that happen here. One other little side note that I got to bring up here, too, is outside of the Giants, there's teams in the divisions that are still making some moves. I think, the Cowboys ended the CeeDee Lamb stuff this past week. I'll tell you the one thing that really, really, really worries me besides Daniel and the quarterback situation. I'm very nervous about the secondary, JC. After watching a couple different things during practice with the ones, man, you just look at all the guys who've walked away over the last couple of years of quality guys. It's part of the business. I understand. And regime, when a regime wants to keep bringing in the guys that they want, so on and so forth. But this goes back to what we've been saying. When you're rebuilding, it takes a couple of years. So this is going to be the next part of the defense that they're going to have to rebuild and hopefully find a couple diamonds in the roughs.
Yeah, and look, I look at what they did offensively, and of course they went young in the draft and drafted, a very talented wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, in the first round, who's going to wear number 1. I think did y'all see that?
Yeah,
they unretired a number.
Unretired it from Clarity. Yeah,
hey, that is. I don't know if I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new thing for me. Y'all heard of that before?
That's the first time. And he was the first one to ever have his number retired. And so they got it unretired. And now as soon as Malik Neighbors' Giants career is over, hopefully in the next 10 years from now, it'll be re-retired when he's done with it.
I mean, but what if this kid is better than Plax and better than Amani Toomer, who I think is not, if I'm not mistaken, he's leading historically for all Giants wide receivers. But what I was saying was they went young in the draft at the wide receiver position, but they went free agency for the offensive linemen.
Yeah,
they got experienced guys to help out with the young group that they have, the John Michael Schmitz of the world, the Evan Neals of the world, the younger guys that are, have potential to play and have long careers. Illuminor, John Runyon, those are guys that have been around the league. Even Schlotman, they've been around the league for a while. And I kind of wish they did that in the defensive back area, whether it's safety or corner. And they had Jalen Mills there, but he never really kind of took off. He had the injury he had to deal with during preseason. But I wish they would have did that at least in the safety room, because the safety, he's the one that lines up all of the guys. Okereke sets the defensive front, and he basically gets the call out. But when stuff is flying around, those safeties need to be on point and understand what they're about to see, not what's going on, what they have on their books, what they've learned over the week. Because what if they show you something that you've never seen before? Guys that have extensive years of experience, they qualify to make adjustments. Some of these guys aren't qualified because they don't really know what's going on in front of them. And that's my biggest concern. I feel like they did it offensively, but defensively, I don't think they checked that box in terms of leadership, communication that comes with the guy that's played 6-7 years in the NFL.
And you got to wonder if you're going to get that guy off of a waiver wire, right? I mean, if he was really that good at calling out offenses and seeing that stuff and lining up players, then he's probably not going to get waived. He's probably not going to get cut off a roster. So you may find a Jason Pinnock, you may get lucky again and find a diamond in the rough. But when we start talking about this time of year, if you haven't gone out and signed yourself a reputable and really solid, if you haven't spent the money, all right, and gone out and gotten yourself a reputable cornerback, then you're kind of stuck
and Brian,
with a pretty young.
I'm not even talking about a guy that needs to come in and start right away, especially for the safety room. And I think I alluded to this before. Brandon Merriweather and Craig Dahl were in the safety room with Landon Collins.
Yeah.
And they literally watched film and basically babied him and fed him with his bib on for the first year. And if y'all remember, Landon Collins was phenomenal his first 2 years in the league.
Yeah, he was.
But because he had, some guys basically working with him every single day. Craig Dahl, smart guy. Brandon Merriweather, smart guy. Athletically, they weren't even close to Landon Collins.
Yeah, right.
But they knew a lot more than him, so much more than him. And I know for a fact that they helped his career get off to a great start here in New York.
Do you think the same kind of thing can happen in a cornerback's room? Like when you're talking about your position rooms, right? And you're talking to you've got vets that are in the room that can do that same kind of thing for the younger corners? Or is it primarily going to be a safety thing? It's just a D-back with the hole.
For me, no. For me, corners are a little bit different. You know, they're the divas of the defense. You know, and they're all alone during the game. You know, they're on the island, and that's kind of how they are. They kind of stick together, and they have big personalities. Like Banks has a big personality. I know Flott, he's kind of coming into his own, but he has a big personality. And it's hard to have a guy that's not playing or not playing in front of you. And it's hard to get those guys to kind of listen, you know, and because you got to think, right? Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins, 2 Pro Bowl cornerbacks, right? Yep. And then you had a young Eli Apple, right? And those guys were playing like starters and, you know, making a lot of money. Eli Apple ain't listening to none of them. He listened to nobody. So it's a little different with the corners, man. Like corners are a special breed of human beings, just like pass rushers. They're a special breed of human beings, bro. They're different. But this is the thing. And you look at all of the success, all the successful teams recently and of the past, they all have a whole bunch of different characters. You know, think about the Phil Simms led Giants back in the 80s and early 90s, right? Those were characters, bro. You know, like Carl Banks added to a room with a hell of characters already there. And then you add Carl Banks to the mix. Phil Simms seems like a small character compared to all other guys, but it takes a Phil Simms. It takes a guy that has that leadership ability that people will listen to, and everybody will shut the fuck up when he's talking. And he can get them all on board. Can I say that, Randy?
Sure.
You did.
Why not?
So sure, why not? But look, we've got 5 captains. Are the 5 captains that we've got those guys? Did you see
believe
who
so.
was?
I believe so. You got Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas, Bobby Okereke, Dexter Lawrence, and Crater, right?
And,
so Crater, I mean, surprised Crater over Gano. That was a little bit surprised, you know, in terms of special teams. But I mean, it's either here nor there. You know what I mean? Like that's just for the coin toss. The other guys are solidified leaders. You didn't have to dom them to be captain. They're leaders already. You know what I mean? And you literally got the most vocal guy on the defense in Bobby Okereke and the most dominant guy on the defense. And then you got the quarterback, and then you have one of the best players in the league in Andrew Thomas. So I like the captains. I'm glad it's not 10. Last year they did 10. I don't know how you get 10 captains. You know, we only did 3 when I was playing. Me, Eli, and Zach Diassi. And those guys were captains for like 15 years.
I have a great Diassi story for you. And JC, I see if you can remember this. He used to come to training camp every year with a new mustache, goatee.
Yeah, every year.
Goes every year.
Yeah.
So I remember one year he says, "This is my Hulk Hogan," and he dyed his mustache. And
Zach was the best. Zach was the best. You know why, Ryan? Listen, this is the reason why Zach was the best. Of course, he had a long, great career. You know, father played the NFL, father played for the Giants. Great man. You know, graduated from Brown, like smart as fuck. He used to warn us and put out emails to all the team members, like all the people on the team, when we had our annual weed test coming. So he'd be like, hey guys, hey everybody, we will be testing, or the NFL will be testing starting on, and keep this, at least my last 2 years, I swear to God, they started the testing on 420. Both of my last 2 years.
Of course.
So two things about that, right? Number one, that's a crazy holiday to be doing it on. Like everybody knows the day, right? Earth Day, right? Earth Day. So, but the great thing about it is, and you know, and this is why I don't understand how people really fail tests, because everybody knows people in the NFL smoke weed, right? You know, now it's, you know, I don't even know if they're testing for it anymore, but I know you can't get in trouble for it anymore, which is good. But back, you know, when I was playing and they was testing for it, you had to basically stop at a certain point during the off season, right? And if they start testing 420, let's call it a month, you got to stop mid-March, right? Mm-hmm. If you're smoking in April, you're pushing it.
It's bad.
You know what I mean? And the great thing about it though, Ryan, is, and it's so funny too, when they start testing and you get tested, let's say you do get tested on 420, they will not test you again till the next year.
Oh.
So once you pass your test, You're hoping they text you on 420. So, like, bro, I used to come in and I see because it's always the same guys. Like, it's always the same, the P testers, the guys that's looking at your dick while you're pissing. Those guys.
Sure. Right? I was going to say, they come in there with you.
It's a weird job to have. Right? So, you come in and you see him, you're like, oh, you see him and you're like, you got me? He's like, oh, no, I ain't got you, JC. God damn it. Like, you pissed off. Hey, and then the day he got you, Jay, you got me today? Yeah, I got you, Jay. Yeah. Everybody else is around like, damn it, man. Like, everybody's jealous.
All that cranberry juice finally paid off.
Party time.
And JC turned around and looked at me and goes, don't act like you're not impressed.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I have to ask this question, and just because you mentioned his name before of Eli Apple, there's a legend, a mythical story I have to ask JC because you're in luck. Is it true when he first came to the team, his mom made cookies for the team?
I don't remember that.
Okay. No, I'm just saying there was a story out there that on his first day of camp, his first day there, his mom made cookies for everybody.
We did literally just talk about why JC probably doesn't remember that.
Okay.
So,
it probably was on 420.
That is the right day to bring cookies in.
But Spag's wife used to bake all the time for us. And he used to bring in goodies, and I used to look forward to them every single week. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, see, this is important stuff. Like this is the
inside look.
You want to know what's going on in the NFL? You want to know who makes cookies? This is all about. And in the media room, you know who makes cookies for everybody, JC? You have to make sure you get on her about this. Is Patty?
No way.
Patty
She
Triana.
never gave me one.
When you see her, when you see her this week, you have to say, Randy told me that when you're in the press box, you make cookies for Ed and Chris and everybody, and you want some, and she'll make sure she gets you some.
Man.
We ought to bring her on.
Oh, it's on now.
We ought to bring her on.
It's on now.
Tell her to her face. Tell her right here, hey, listen, we want some cookies.
That's it. You said it for me, Ryan. And the thing is, I rode with her on the elevator when we was leaving the last game. I thought me and her was like this.
Yes. Listen, I'm going to send her
across. They can't really cross that good.
I'm going to send her a tweet and let her know that we just outed her on the show. And that's going to happen. Real quick, guys, we're talking about the wide receiver room before. This is not our trivia question for the week, but I want to throw a little fun fact at you and see if you guys can answer this question. Neighbors, Odell Beckham, and Kadarius Toney were the latest three wide receivers in Giants draft history that were first-round picks as far as wide receivers are concerned. Do you know before then when the last wide receiver was picked in the first round by the Giants? It's a good trivia question, but this is not our question this week. But it's something that, like, how often they really don't go that route with getting a wide receiver. Remember, so it was because Neighbors this year, Odell back in 2014, obviously Kadarius Toney in 2021.
Yeah.
Do you know who the last one was?
I think I remember Shep being a second-round pick.
Yeah, it was not Shep. It wasn't Shep. Yeah. By the way, very sad to see him get released by
the Bucks.
Oh, Tampa Bay let him go.
Tampa Bay let him go. I was really upset about that. Actually, I was really hoping he would be able to have one more act in the. He still might.
He still might get that call, because injuries happen, and he is a veteran wide receiver that's played some good football in the NFL. So he might get a phone call.
I hope so. I really hope he does.
Amani Toomer?
No. After Amani.
After Amani?
Post Amani. Was it Hakeem Nicks?
That is correct. Do you know what year?
I should have knew that. Damn, I'm terrible.
Do you know what year?
My year, 09.
I got Hakeem Nicks. What more do you want from it?
He came out my year.
Okay.
I should have knew that.
We'll do a combo on that one.
It's a little. I figured it's a little fact, but you know what? Since Ryan Wyatt, we're talking trivia. While we're talking trivia,
we might as well. We'll just say once again, this week's episode of the Big Blue Report is brought to you by NFLShop.com. Even the trivia element is brought to you by NFLShop.com. It is powered by Fanatics. You should go ahead and show your love for the Giants and support your boys over here by clicking that link in the show description, placing your order today because you need gear. You need gear for the 2024 season, and you want to rep Big Blue all year round like we do. So go ahead and hit nflshop.com. They've got you covered. Head to the description below. Click on the link. Get all of that Giants gear now. And go Big Blue.
JC, when was the last time before 2022 the Giants made the playoffs?
2012 or 11.
No, you were there.
Oh, 16. My fault. I'm tripping. 16.
Okay.
You.
Bad.
2016. That's good. That's all right. No, we're good. We're here.
Let me try that question again. Hey, JC, before 2022, when was the last time?
We'll fix that in post.
So bad.
What the hell, man? What the hell is going on tonight? Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Okay, so in 2016, the New York Football Giants made the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And JC was a part of that team, but let's see if he knows the answer to this question.
Whoa. And how many? Good Lord.
I know who led the team because I was second. Landon Collins led the team.
Okay.
And tackles that year.
How many did you have that year? Do you remember?
96.
Yes. Okay. JC, you were 100%. I have it right in
96.
front of me. Yeah, you had 96.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go Landon had 121.
The correct
answer
answer
is 112. That's my answer. It's my stab at it.
125. JC was the closest without going over, ladies and gentlemen. If this was the price, he'd be in the showcase showdown if this was the Price is Right now.
Hey, love it.
And you had to make it specific because that was the year I played, even though my memory is it's like this sometimes.
Yeah, right.
I'll throw you one more for that year. You ready? Who led the team in sacks that year? And how
many? In 16.
How many?
And how many? Ugh. It's either between two people, OV or JPP, right?
I'll give you that one. It's OV.
It's OV. 9.5.
8.5.
I was close.
Very close.
And JPP had 7.
I had 7. Yeah.
And
that's good production.
Yeah, it was like again. That defense was a great defense. It was actually one of my favorite defenses that they've had in a while. After those Super Bowl champion defense. Listen, going into 2017, the Giants were heavily favored. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of people picking the 17 Giants. I only thought my worst memory from that, JC, but you probably had a hell of a lot more than I did, but that wide receiver game against the Chargers when every wide receiver was going down and they were actually picking fans to go on the field to see if they feel like to throw the ball to them.
You know what goes kind of recognized from that game? I also got hurt that game too. Nobody talks about that.
Oh,
nobody
no, back
talks
of it.
About
yeah,
the
Brandon
neck
Marshall
injury that I suffered that game.
You had
no, but four wide receivers, the 3 starters, Brandon Marshall, OBJ, and then Shep and Dwayne Harris got hurt that game.
Dwayne Harris got hurt too. Roger Lewis. It was Roger Lewis. I remember the last time we spoke about it. I couldn't remember who it was. I remember going to Roger Lewis after the game. I go, you ever see anything like this? He says, I started looking around and realized I was the only wide receiver left.
That was it. That was so crazy. And I think 3 of them went on IR for the year.
Yep.
I think Dwayne ended up coming back, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
or
Dwayne
Shep
did not.
did. Shep came back. Somebody came back.
Shep came back. That was the last game of Dwayne Harris's career.
Oh wow!
For real?
Yeah, that was.
But didn't he sign somewhere else?
He never made it back on the field as far as I
he was. Let me tell you something. That dude was
great.
Tough as hell.
He
was tough. He was solid. He ain't look like shit either. Like he ain't look like too much. Like OBJ. You know what I'm saying? He was skinny, but he looked fast. He looked explosive. Dwayne never really looked fast. He kind of looked a little out of shape at times.
Maybe.
He was a dog, bro. Straight up, he was a goon. He would block his ass off. He was a tough receiver, and his return game was second to none. He was so good returning the football. So good.
Wow.
I got another one for you. Who's the first Giant to ever lead the team in rushing and never make it back to the NFL?
Was it from that year?
I think I know who you're talking about.
It was the following 2017.
Not Wayne. No, not Wayne Gallman.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Was it Orleans Darkwa?
Orleans Darkwa led the Giant. He led the Giants in rushing in 17. He went to go get his knee taken care of for surgery, and he never got signed anywhere else. Never made it back. I felt so bad. And he was such a nice guy. I seriously, every time he was like, when we were doing media, he always said, did you get everything? If you need me for anything else, don't ever hesitate to ask. I was like, that's a nice guy right there, dude.
Nice dude.
Let me tell you a quick little story about Bill McGovern. Rest in peace. I love Bill. Bill, he was one of my favorite linebacker coaches. Like, he was so good, so real. But he used to always add a Y at the end of people's names, right? So Johnny, Paulie, whatever. Like, always adding a Y at the end. A lot they do Jersey guys, right? They add the Y at the end of the names, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like he didn't mean nothing by it. Like, he just said it because it was just flowing. He said it to Darkwa. He was like, "All right, Darky." I was like, "Coach." What? He's like, "What I say?" I said, "Yo, you called him Darky." He's like, "Oh," you could see it all in his face. Like, he realized what happened. And it was an innocent thing. He did it all the time to everybody. But just some names you can't put a Y at the end of.
No.
That was crazy. Oh, man. Rest in peace, my guy, Bill McGovern, man. That's my guy, man.
I just want to let you know, for summarize, I don't know why I love that story so much, but that's hysterical. The only other story that I can tell you right now that I remember vividly, that it was just someone who was so uncomfortable being in a situation, it was Amani Toomer. Amani was sitting next to me. It was the last game of the 2015 season. It was Coughlin's last game. And I said to him, I'm like, "So do you have the itch to get back out there?" He goes, "I don't have the itch to even watch this team right now because you JC, you remember the end of that season? It was rough. And he goes, "I don't have he actually got up and he said to me, he's like, 'Don't tell anybody, but I just took a shot.'" He had one of those little mini bottles.
What was he doing? Media? What was he doing then?
He was doing the post game.
Post game. Hey, listen. Hey, sometimes you might have to. Yeah, it get rough, man. It get rough. Like this pregame. I do pre-post game radio. So before I was giving out backpacks to kids in New Brunswick, right? Afterwards, we had they was giving out burgers at the spot, the Vine down in New Brunswick, right next to Rutgers campus. And he was like, "Hey, man, you want to do a drink?" And I was like, "Nah, I got to work in a couple hours." You know what I mean? And then I was like, "You know what? It's preseason. It's preseason. I'll take a couple. I'll take one for the road, too."
You got to have a roadie. I mean, come on.
Man, I'm going to regret saying it. But at least he didn't take a boat trip.
Right. We're not doing those during the season, Randy.
We're not doing it anymore.
Sorry, too soon.
Too soon.
Nah, we good. It's past. It's past enough. I brought it up enough times.
Nice.
Going back to the 2024 Giants, we'll finish.
Forgot what we were talking about.
I was gonna say, are we actually talking ball? What's going on here?
Going.
Cool.
Nice segue here. So as we get ready to open up the season against Minnesota, the next coming weeks for our show here, we're going to do our best to have a couple former Giants on, start helping get the season going, also get some tales from when they were on the field as well. As we look ahead, guys, obviously the things to keep an eye on, obviously the secondary is something to keep an eye on, and obviously the play of Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and I had a very tough conversation again about Daniel the other day, and I asked a question to him, and JC, I'll ask the question to you. Knowing his contracts situation and the language that's in his contract. The language that's in his contract about if for some reason he gets injured, the money, and I don't know about the years, but the money becomes more of a guaranteed situation. If for some reason this season gets out of control and they're 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, do you pull them?
Ooh.
Because at that
2-7 is rough, bro.
It's a fair question because you look at this schedule. Again, you're basing everything off of last season with the schedule. Yeah. But you're looking at the Cincinnati's, the Pittsburghs, the Saints, the Cowboys, the Clevelands. Yeah,
I think like this, right? If he's the reason that the Giants are 2-7, I think you have to pull him. I think anybody that plays poorly for you to lose majority of your games, or you've had your hand in losing a significant amount of games, especially at that position, the quarterback position, I think you have to pull him. If Tom Brady was 2-7 1 year, I think Bill will pull him. Hey, sit your ass down for a second. Maybe, let whoever the backup is play this game, and see what we can get. If he's the reason, let's say over those span of 9 games, he has like 14 interceptions, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be hard not to pull that guy if he's performing poorly, but if it's 2-7 and the other team has just lit our defense up every single week and he's averaging 27 points, but he's still losing. No, you know what I mean? But it has to have some type of context behind it.
Yeah.
But if he plays poorly and the Giants are 2-7, it's hard for me to say you got to give somebody else a chance, because it's almost like you're done with the playoffs. Almost, you're a little bit more than halfway through the season. You would have to potentially win out to give yourself any type of hope, to make the playoffs. And that's almost impossible to do when you kind of, fumbled around the first 2.5 months of the season. It's almost impossible. And I would say you have to go with somebody else to see what you can muster up for the rest of the season, man. It'll be rough, but it has to be Daniel Jones playing poorly. They're not going to pull him if he's not playing poorly. I don't recommend they do that. I don't think they would do that.
Yeah, and the coaches are going to give him a way longer leash than any fan would, right? I mean, they're going to recognize that there are other elements that maybe factor into the performance as it was. We've all talked about last year. We know the reason for some of the difficulties there. But JC, exactly right. I mean, the idea is that you take it week by week, and if you start getting into the point where you're 2-4, 2-5, 3-6, those kinds of things, some decisions have to be made in the coaching rooms when all of the fans by then. I mean, all the guy's got to do is lose one game, right? He's got to throw a couple of bad picks, and the entirety of the fan base is going to be yelling and screaming. I guess fans, I love you. I'm a fan as well. I'm counseling discretion. Let's all just see how it goes. No. Let's take some of JC's advice. Let's do a little 420. Let's just kind of relax a little bit.
Not that we're promoting that, by the way.
No, of course not. No. Medicinal stuff. Medicinal. It's
medicinal. There you
go. But I mean, I guess look, the idea is we know what it was last year. Right. This year is not last year. Right. And so we have to focus on this year as though it's this year and not as though it's last year. So it's almost a clean slate kind of a thing, especially given the talent that has been put into the line in front of him, the talent that's been put into the receiving core. I mean, we're talking speed over possession. I think that's one of the reasons why Isaiah's the odd man out, and so it's just not the type of receiver we're looking for anymore. So I don't know. I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it goes. If we start out 2-0, it's a lot different of a story than if we start out 1-1 or 0-2.
0-2.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things too that I always find very interesting is the leash that Eli got throughout his career, because there were some seasons where Eli was just putrid. Eli led the league, I think 2 seasons with the most interceptions of starting quarterbacks. And, the leash he got because the team was not terrible. They were always in contention. Those last couple of games of the season always seemed to fall apart. I'm just saying, like, I feel like I'm in the time machine in 2022 where we're looking at Daniel and you're saying, okay, he's on the clock. His back is against the wall again. He's got to prove that he's got to prove that this is his job, his team, his position. And now, because he knows, again, like we've been saying, this is his last chance.
Yeah. The difficult part is that I hope they're not trying to make him into something that he's not. I read a very insightful article. What makes Daniel Jones dangerous? What made him super dangerous in 2022, and what makes him really kind of stand out is his ability to run the ball. Right, his arm is strong, right, but he's never been known as like super accurate passer, right? Especially when you're talking mid and long distance, right? And so now I feel like if we're going to have Daniel Jones at his best, and he needs to be at his best in order to win enough games to, stay on the squad, we've got to allow him to run. We've got to allow him the ability to be that type of player as well, that dual threat player. And I'm hoping that the coaches are willing to kind of open that up, especially given the neck, especially given the ACL and the $23 million we'd owe him if he doesn't pass his physical in March of 2025.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I don't really. I think Randy, you said it's almost like a clean slate. It's kind of not a clean slate because Daniel Jones is not Joe Shane and Daboll's guy.
Right,
they didn't draft him. So what they're going off of, and you got to remember when they first came in, they had the option to get the 5th-year extension, and they didn't do it. And they had a show me type of year in 2022. And Daniel Jones forced their hand. He played well enough to get the Giants to a playoff and well enough for the Giants to win a playoff game. First time in 10 years. When we made it, we had a great team. We went up there, boat trip, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, we lost. He was able to do that. That means a lot. But that was 2 years ago. That was before, I think, 3 more injuries he's had since that year he had last year. And missing, half of the season, going on IR, and even when he was available, he didn't play that well. So it's like it's kind of, a new page, but at the same time, it's definitely in the back of their head that, hey, we don't know about this guy quite yet. That's why they gave him the deal that they gave him, so they can get out after 2 years. There's a lot of things that I think structured and bringing Daniel Jones into this season that says it's not a clean slate. And Daniel Jones has to play well, not just for the Giants to have success, but for him to stay in the league and at least stay the quarterback for the New York Football Giants for the foreseeable future.
Do you think they'll let him play to his strengths, though? Or do you think they're going to try and make him into what they want him to be?
I'll answer that one. I'm sorry. I hate to say this. If we're sitting there saying his legs are his strength, and meanwhile they're putting
one of them.
It's one of it, but that, again, one of the reasons why he was successful in 2022 is they limited his throwing and had him run more. But they can't have him run more when they put these great receivers for him to throw the ball to. They want him to throw the football, and that's why they're putting neighbors out there. They're putting a speed cat like Jalen Hyatt out there.
Sure.
They have,
But you need an effective run game to open up the receivers, right? I mean, if all you do is throw the ball, all the defensive linemen are going to do is pin their ears back and run after you all day, right?
The only, well, not the only problem, but a problem that I see with the argument that you guys are having is the way that you stretch the field out is basically when you get one-on-one coverage, you throw the football to the wide receiver down the field, right? Usually that's man-to-man, right? When quarterbacks usually run on man-to-man coverage when everybody's running with the receivers down the field.
Way down.
So, you know what I mean? It's almost like you got to pick and choose, but at the same time, if you look at the greats quarterbacks in the league, right? Let's go Patrick Mahomes. He does a lot with his legs. He throws the ball down the field. Lamar Jackson does a lot with his legs, throws the ball down the field. Jalen Hurts does a lot with his legs, throws the ball down the field. So it has to, it's all about Daniel Jones, fellas. He has to have discernment on when he needs to throw the ball down the field and when he needs to run. When you're in zone coverage, I'm sorry, that deep ball is not going to be there because they're probably going to be in cover 2 or cover 4 or something rolled up to probably neighbors. And then also your run lanes are not going to be there because everybody has zone eyes looking at the quarterback. Now you have to be a pocket quarterback and throw the football down the field.
Yeah.
So Daniel Jones has to take it to another level in terms of being a pocket quarterback, not just throwing the ball down the field, but when they don't give you an opportunity to do that and they're playing zone, a cover two type of zone, then you have to be a pinpoint in the pocket passer and getting the ball off on rhythm and on time. So we have to see Daniel Jones take another step as a passer, because the quarterback nowadays doesn't mean you have to be an efficient passer. But I think in order for Daniel Jones to have success this year, he has to kind of fall into that efficient passer category as some of the greats who are mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That fall into that, they're a very good, efficient passer in the pocket without pressure or with pressure, whatever the case is. But they're dynamic because they add the running factor, and that makes them a lot more difficult to guard, and the offense a lot more difficult to predict and to contain.
It's runners that also have that quick twitch and good decision making. Yeah,
100%. And those are the quarterbacks you see who have success. People talk about Lamar Jackson not being a good pocket quarterback. Let me get the receivers that he's had to catch the football for him the last few years, right? Lamar Jackson is a phenomenal quarterback. He's really good in the pocket, and he's fantastic when he runs. You know, he may not be the best pocket quarterback, but when you have the escapability that he has, when you has the arm strength that he has, you can get away with certain things. Daniel Jones, I think he has incredible arm strength. I think he has incredible athletic ability, but it's the decision-making that's really helped him in 2022 and cost him in years before that and last year. So he has to make better decisions, and he has to be a better pocket quarterback for the offense to really get the most out of Neighbors, the offensive line additions that they added, even a Wan'Dale Robinson, who could be phenomenal on third down, because he's a guy that's going to get open. You remember Richie James a few years ago?
Yeah,
Richie James was not Wan'Dale Robinson, but Richie James got third down targets on a consistent basis because he got open.
I liked Richie James. He was good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, well, he was a guy. He
just not returning punts. Just not returning punts. Hey, but hey, let's bring that up. For a couple years now, the Giants have suffered their woes at the returner position, specifically punt return. We all know punt is a very highly regarded special teams, area of the game. Punt return is the opposite side of that. So you have to have a good and what's the best word to use? Reliable return game. And it doesn't mean you have to get 10 yards of return. No, that means every time that ball gets kicked, you have somebody to catch it. And that's what the Giants haven't had. Richie James fumbled a couple times. Eric Gray, Sterling did. The corner got hurt.
Tore his.
So they had significant problems at punt returner. Gunner solves that question for you. He solves that big problem. That was a big problem. A huge problem that the Giants had. Gunner solves that problem for the Giants. So for me, yes, his injury kind of gave us some, speculation and causation, but at the same time, he solves a major problem that the Giants have been dealing with. He's the one that solved it. And even this past weekend, what's the receiver number 87? McKenzie. He muffed the first punt.
Sure did.
Yeah.
And then he bobbled the second one. It's like, that's what you're here for.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to say, I know we're coming up on an hour here, so this is one of the finals, I think. But, I mean, what do you guys think of the new kickoff?
I was about to ask the same question.
I want to see what it is. I'm glad that kickoff is back basically back inserted into the NFL. And I think you're going to start seeing rosters start shifting, but I don't think nobody really knows exactly what's happening. I talked to the Lions coaches. They're going to put Gibbs back at returner. A starting running back who runs hard and elusive back deep. But it's kind of like a running play. Yeah. People are closer in terms of blocking, and the returner, basically, you have to wait until they get the ball. So I think there's going to be less lanes, but who knows how to run and pick through lanes? Running backs. It's literally what they've been doing their whole entire career. So I think the people that are going to figure the special teams, the kickoff return and the kickoff aspect out first, they're going to have huge success, especially early on in the season.
Yeah.
and it's funny. People always knock the XFL for some of the things that they did during the game. A lot of the things that they did has now been picked up by the NFL.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
But that's innovation, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
The NFL is very stubborn when it comes to innovating. they do want to protect their players. I do agree with that. They do want to protect their players, and you've seen that shift happen basically over the last 15 years, that the NFL is consistently putting in new rules to protect their players. But you don't want to kind of take out special parts of the game that created special careers like Devin Hester. He was more of a punt return predominantly. I mean, but you got Jacoby Jones, rest in peace. He had a couple 108-yard kickoff returns.
Yep.
He's a legend because of kickoff return. You know what I mean? So Josh Cribbs is another guy that I think of, that just phenomenal. If you had the same kickoff rules now that you had when they played, they wouldn't have those careers that they had.
Not even close.
Right.
So now you bring that part of the game back. It makes guys like myself for my first 5 or 6 years very valuable. Guys that, can run down on kickoff and cover, can block on kick return also, because, back then they were doing wedges. They had the 3-man, 4-man wedges. You had to be able to run down and be tough and hit that wedge. And then also on the back end of it, you got to run down and block a guy that looked just like you running full speed. So I love that aspect is back in the game, because I think it took
actual returns. Oh, we lost him. He got so excited.
There he is.
Wow.
He was so excited. He's like,
oh my gosh. Well, that was it. That was my kickoff thing.
Well, guys, as we hit the hour mark, I will say this has been a lot of fun. I like when we sort of get off on those random tangents like that and being able to tell great stories. And now Patty Triana is now on the clock with cookies for JC. So now it's on. Now it's on. Guys, Big Blue Report every single week. Get ready for next week as we get our first game preview. We start looking at the Giants and the Vikings. Get ready to go. Ryan's so excited for the new season. Listen, it's
now. I can't wait. Ask me
here.
3 weeks from now.
It's here. It's here. We're very the only person who's going to know how excited is the person who does his laundry. So
it's a good thing it's me.
Oh my God.
For Ryan Darlington, Jonathan Casillas, I'm Randy Zellea. We'll see you next week here on the Big Blue Report. See you guys.